Welcome to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Today, we are going to talk about the Eternals box office, Chloe Zhao, Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movie, all of that and more up next. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. I want to introduce my fantastic guest and collaborator and great friend, Mr. VashSky, host of Freshly Squeezed. How you doing today, Dre?
Thank you very much.
Doing pretty good. I do appreciate the intro, and I am super excited to get started with some of our topics today. Some pretty fascinating stuff here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a really stacked show. There's a lot going on in the world of entertainment. Let's start off with the Eternals, Marvel's latest movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Huge ambitions for this movie. It debuted on Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a few days, and it opened to $71 million. Okay, so a little shy of what I think they were expecting. And it comes actually a little bit under Shang-Chi and Black Widow even. So the lowest of the three in this Pandy era. Dre, what are your thoughts overall on this $71 million opening weekend debut for Marvel's Eternals?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a couple articles about it. I thought the Box Office Mojo article was pretty good, and that, for any other studio, they'd be over the moon, right? $71 million, especially in this, in the kind of era that we're living in right now with the Pandy. Okay, good, great, awesome. But then it's got the Marvel brand attached to it. It's an MCU film, and these films have historically been must-watches, right? You got to go in the theater, you got to see these things. To keep up with the story and so forth, and 71 million, that's okay, all right, but really the big question right now, especially with some of the some of the reviews and so forth coming out, what's the legs on this thing gonna be? Right. Yes, some people say, well, does it have to be front loaded and stuff like that? Maybe it does have legs, and maybe everybody's wrong. Yeah, that's a possibility, but historically these things have been very front loaded. So when your weekend is so, just kind of fiscally conservative, for lack of a better term, it's just kind of just below the expectations, which usually Disney has some influencing on that, right? They always like to supersede expectations, so they'll set them kind of, they'll set them low at the outset, so that way, they get all the headlines. Oh, look, it supersedes expectations. It did better than, way better than we expected. For it to come short, it's not the greatest look.
It's not. 71 million is we all agree is a solid opening, and for any other studio would have been phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the big problem with Eternals going into weekend number 2, and the weekend number 2 is going to be a big kind of like tale for this movie, because unlike Shang-Chi, which opened stronger and also was very well received by both fans and critics. It was universally loved. And even Black Widow, I mean, it wasn't getting a ton of like over the moon praise, but it was seen as a really good, solid, kind of standard Marvel movie. There wasn't a whole lot of like, critics and fans didn't pan the movie. They didn't love it. It was just a good Marvel movie. The problem with Eternals is that that's not the case. In terms of the critics, it's pretty rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
it's on Cinema Score. It's coming in as a B, which again at face value a B sounds great, but to put it in context, Cinema Score gives nearly everything an A. I mean, even Attack of the Clones, the Star Wars prequel, has an A on Cinema Score. So for Eternals to come in with a B, that's bad. That's bad. And so I just don't know, with a 2 hour and 40-minute runtime and really, really divisive, mixed kind of word of mouth, what that second weekend is going to look like. Dre, I mean, if I'll pose the question to you, and this is just kind of like your guess, but what do you see like in your prediction, your guesstimation, what that second weekend drop off will look like percentage wise? We're looking at 50%, 60, 70% drop off. What would you kind of put it at from where we stand today?
Well, I think the average has historically been around the 50% mark for a lot of these things. Look, I'm going to have to go 55, 60. I think myself personally. I just don't think, it's got some uphill struggles, right? You mentioned the, critical reception, which still does have influence,
right?
For better or for worse, in my opinion, but it does still have influence. And you look at it, and it's 46% Rotten Tomatoes, and that's
pretty bad.
That's pretty bad, especially as critics historically have been pretty glowing with their previous with previous entries into the MCU and some of the other Disney works, right? Usually you expect that to be far higher. Audience score is good, 80%. That's actually pretty solid. That's actually higher than what I was expecting. But will word of mouth overcome some of these issues? I just don't see it. So I'm gonna have to put that at the kind of the lower end of below 50% in my view, just based off that. Now you could have maybe not so much of a percentage drop off, simply because the starting point was as low as it was, right? So sometimes when you front load things so much, the drop off is significant because it was, everybody went out to see this thing day one. That could happen, but honestly, it's, if it does drop off like that, it's still a loss, right? It's still not what you want to see. You'd like it to be more 40% because it was so, it did kind of underperform in that first weekend. So I think I'm going to have to go 50% or less on that. Myself personally, it's quite fascinating. When, as we were getting ready for the show, we talked about some of these issues, and one of the things that we ran into was runtime. So maybe you can speak on that.
Yeah, the runtime is a big problem for this movie because 2 hours and 40 minutes is a long time to spend in a theater, especially when you're considering that there's probably about 25 to 30 minutes of commercials.
Trailers and previews. Yeah.
Right. And then AMC, I think even John Campia did a great little bit on this, which is
AMC's
spot on with this, with the AMC commercials while you're in an AMC theater. You got to have the AMC commercial, then the AMC drink and soda and candy commercial. Then so you have 10 minutes of the AMC commercial while you're sitting in an AMC theater. And then you got, another 20, 25 minutes of trailers. So you're going to be in the theater at least 3 hours.
Yeah.
Even if you liked the movie, if you thought it was a good movie, are you willing to sit through that 3 hour runtime basically again? I don't know. I think that's going to hurt its legs a little bit. At least.
Well, yeah. I mean, just we talk about attractions and the parks on this show quite a lot, right? And part of the discussion when it comes to attractions and rides is hourly capacity, right? How many people you can cycle through an hour? Well, in the theater world, that's a very kind of similar prospect in that with a longer film, you can only squeeze in so many showings per day. And so that can kind of hurt its performance. The fact that, these projections factor that into the equation, it still was under suggests, maybe those are more sizable issues. Especially when you hear like from reviewers and stuff where it's like the pacing's kind of like wonky, some places are a slog, some places maybe move a little bit too fast. That is considerate. If I may say one thing on the AMC thing, by the way, Jesus, man, like those with AMC theaters specifically, those ads are they just pound them at you. I mean, I've like at some points it's taken like 30 minutes or 40 minutes just to start the actual, film when it was supposed to go off on a certain time. It's just like, dude, that's like, cut it out. Like you cut those things down. It's crazy.
Oh, and those are anxiety moments for me, especially with like a new Star Wars movie, because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd.
Sure.
And I'm in the theater for the first time, right? And I'm excited. I'm gonna see Force Awakens. Yeah, can't wait. And you're going through all these trailers. It's already been like 20, 25 minutes,
right?
And you're like, yeah, it's gonna start. Hell yeah. And then all sudden, here comes the AMC candy commercials. Oh God. And the turn off your cell phone commercial. Oh God. It's like, come on, it's driving me crazy. Start the movie,
I know.
Right now, Dre, in this new world we live in, these theaters I think they need to, and Campy addressed this on his video too, and I thought he was spot on. They need to do everything they can to entice people to get into those theaters.
Absolutely, yeah.
You already got someone's money. You already got their ticket. They're already sitting in your AMC theater, right?
They do, yeah.
You don't need to sell them AMC while they're there. Show them the movie.
Yeah, I would agree on that. Some of these ads are tough because, for like previews and stuff, obviously they have contractual obligations, they have marketing and stuff, and they do at this point they do require that marketing money a lot. Right. That said, though, yes, I would agree. You really do have to, adjust that balancing line, especially in this age, because you're trying to entice people to come back. You don't want to put them off by, sending that, feature presentation 40 minutes into the future. You really have to, you really have to have the audience on your side, and yes, they can become restless.
Yeah, and the thing too, and then we'll pivot into the next topic real quick. Sure. But like, I want to kind of also say, like, in this new world, like, a lot of people buy their tickets on their phones. It's everything's digital, right? Yeah. So if AMC really wants to market to its audience, I think the best move would be to cut the in-theater commercials out.
Yeah,
and utilize all the data you have through the online purchases and market people through their phones. Streamline the theater experience where you get people quick into that theater experience, but then when they get home, sell them on more, right?
Yeah.
So I think that might be the smarter move. If anyone from AMC is watching, by any chance, maybe that might be the smarter move. I don't know. But,
maybe that might be the smarter move. Now, I think we should clarify for our audience, we have not seen Eternals, myself or you yourself, OG.
Correct.
What is because I think the audience is going to want to know, what is our kind of collective feeling about it, about, either seeing it or not seeing it. OG, for you, do you have plans to see it, or are you going to wait?
No, I'm not going to see it in theaters, but like, I don't want like my audience to think like, oh, I'm not going to see it in theaters, so I'm like, that says something about Eternals, because it doesn't. I'm just like, if you're new to the channel, I'm just not a theater person. So that doesn't necessarily speak.
This is very true, folks.
It's very, very true. So it doesn't really speak to Eternals per se. So I'm going to wait for the Disney Plus. I haven't even seen Shang-Chi yet, and I want to see it. I'm just going to wait for Disney Plus. I'm just not a theater person. So yes, I do plan. I'm a huge MCU fan. I do plan to watch this one. I want to have an open mind. I know a lot of people didn't like this one. So my expectations are a little lower than they were, a little more mitigated, but like, I will watch it because I am a Marvel fan. It does look, from the trailers and what I've seen so far, a little dull, to be quite honest with you. But I'm going to give it a shot. Well, are you going to watch this? Are you going to go to the theaters? Are you going to watch it on D+? Are you going to avoid it altogether? Where are you standing right now, Dre, on this?
I gotta be perfectly honest with the audience. We don't lie here, okay?
Absolutely.
I am so disinterested myself personally, and look, I think that speaks to why it may have, underperformed. It just does not look appealing to me, for many of the reasons that you point out. It really looks like the Inhuman show. I believe we've said that before.
Yep, 100% reminds me of that.
When you said it too, I was like, dude, that's exactly what this feels like. It's just totally. It's very grim. It's it's desaturated and stuff, and honestly, it's like the Eternals. It's like, oh, look, Guardians of the Galaxy at least was something very creative. It was something very new for Marvel, and the trailers and kind of the ads for it definitely had a signature appeal that was very unique in itself, and really kind of, I was like, okay, let's give this one a shot. It
was fun. It was fun energy to that, right?
And you could definitely tell by the ads and promotional material that they put out for it, and it was like, okay, what I'm saying is that even though these were kind of unknown characters, I had no previous experience to them in the comics or any other auxiliary material. It was still something that was like, okay, this is something unique. This is something kind of cool. Let's give it a shot. This doesn't have any of that. You know, it just is, it's not necessarily unique, and it's characters that I don't really know, and the promotional material is not really grabbing me in. And honestly, it's like with Marvel, Endgame for me was the Endgame. You know, and it's gonna take a little bit of like
a little bit of a push to get you back in.
Yeah, and this just isn't it. This is this isn't it for me. So, not too interested. Full disclosure, I'm probably not going to see this one in theaters myself, and I'm probably going to be waiting for a release on digital platforms.
Yeah, and one thing about this one that I've heard, and this is not spoiler or anything. I mean, but like it really does deal in a lot of like kind of like these kind of grand kind of concepts of like the creation of the universe, right? And stuff like that, which I actually am interested in. Like that topic, that subject matter, I'm really interested in. I think it's fascinating. Just like where like our role in this bigger picture kind of thing. And I heard that is kind of a theme in this movie. So that part of it does intrigue me. But like we've discussed, like it feels like that Inhuman show. At least aesthetically and just the energy of it, it feels like that. And that wasn't the greatest. That wasn't Marvel's greatest moment. That show. I mean, it really was.
Oh God, yeah. That was who was that? I keep forgetting his name. The kind of the previous
Perlmutter.
Ike Perlmutter. That's it.
Perlmutter.
You got it. Thank you for bailing me out of that. I do really appreciate that. That was kind of his child project,
right.
And you could tell that probably the best to get him out of the way so that Kevin Feige can report Tiger at the top. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. Okay, maybe he wasn't the best brand executive out there. I'll just put it that way.
Definitely
and
not.
So, but to you would think that whatever decision they would have going forward would be kind of like the opposite of what that is. And it's just, you would think, and it just didn't really see that from this. It seemed like a kind of let's try this again, and it's like, okay, well that didn't work the first time. You're not gonna swindle me again.
Yeah. It's disappointing. We'll see, when it comes on D+, when it comes on Disney+, I'll check it out. But it'll be interesting to see how, if that second weekend box office does drop off dramatically and the movie kind of ends up being kind of a financial disappointment, maybe not a flop, but a disappointment. How that changes the MCU going forward in terms of like the relevance of these characters in future MCU. Because right now look, the Eternals is a huge part of the MCU going forward. I mean that this was supposed to be a real event movie, and if the movie does kind of at the box office, I think Feige might have to adjust. Going forward. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any adjustments being made. Maybe they can kind of cherry pick certain things that did work and utilize that going forward. But I'm sure those conversations are being had right now in the halls of Marvel Studios because they have to be. This was definitely on the lower end of what they wanted.
Oh yeah, I would definitely think that they are. Because obviously you have to acknowledge these films. If you have greater grand plans down the line, maybe those things have to be adjusted. But necessarily you can't remove these from canon now. You've introduced them to the world, and you're going to have some level of the audience expecting these characters to make appearances in future products going forward. So but I agree with you. You definitely have to adjust that now. I would think, based on this reaction and reception. I mean, hey, look, maybe they have some data that we're not privy to, suggesting that this really struck a chord in the audience. I'm not sure. Like I said, the audience score for Rotten Tomatoes was actually surprisingly high. So we're just gonna have to see.
Yeah, I'll have to wait and see. Let's move on to our next topic, which is actually still Eternals related, kind of.
Right.
The Eternals director, Chloe Zhao.
Yes.
It's been rumored, and I'm going to pull up the article here.
Please.
Give me one moment. Okay, so this is a rumor. So we're gonna go ahead and definitely acknowledge that right out the gate. This is a rumor, but this is Star Wars Newsnet, which they're a great source, you guys, in regards to anything Star Wars. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched like Collider Jedi Council, stuff like that. Christian Harloff, all them. This is kind of like their go-to site for all the Star Wars stuff. So I trust these guys quite a bit. So if they're reporting on it, doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen, but it definitely lends credibility to this rumor that there probably are at least talks. You know, I think that's fair to say, that being the fact that they're reporting on it, because they are very, very credible. But they're saying here, a news story from Big Screen Leaks posted on his site, One Take News, indicates that Chloe Zhao is Kevin Feige's choice to direct his Star Wars project, which he will be overseeing. Michael Waldron is on board to pen the script. This is coming from the same source that said that Rogue Squadron's production was going to be delayed, which we will talk about in this video as well a little bit later on. Hollywood Reporter confirmed yesterday. He also indicated to us that the 2023 spot will be taken by another movie, likely set in the High Republic. The report is also saying an official announcement could be coming soon. So here's the thing with the Chloe Zhao thing. There's only, look, I have, like we said, we neither of us have seen Eternals. Okay, so I mean, we can't really comment on that movie because we haven't seen it yet. So that's fair. I also haven't seen her other movie, which is Nomadland, which I heard was fantastic. She won Academy Awards. I heard it was really, really, critically acclaimed film, but I haven't seen it. So it's hard for me to kind of get excited or not excited for her Star Wars project. I mean, from Feige's perspective, I can kind of see where he's coming from, I guess, because, he kind of did like a space movie with Eternals. So you kind of have that relationship with Chloe Zhao. So let's do the other space movie for Star Wars now with Chloe Zhao.
Yeah, I guess.
But the problem, though, is that this movie hasn't been the most well-received Marvel movie. Now, that doesn't guarantee that the Star Wars movie with her name attached to it will be the same. But I don't know. I mean, if I was Lucasfilm and if I was Kevin Feige, I'd be a little bit concerned. Going into this.
I would be. I mean, we look, all credit to Chloe Zhao, but let's be fair here. She doesn't have necessarily the roster of films that you might be looking for, or maybe more accurately the experience that might be, that you would think would be applied towards the film, towards the that's being set in the Star Wars universe. I mean, these films are. I mean, if you think Marvel films are heavily scrutinized, look at Star Wars films. You have a wide swath of the fan base. Multiple demographics in terms of kind of fan profile, whether they be sequel fans, prequel fans, go down the list here, that you have to appeal to, and it's just. Chloe Zhao's just a very interesting choice. It's not necessarily someone you might expect on the kind of thinking about it, and it's just, this is gonna be Kevin Feige's first entry in this, and it's gonna be with Chloe Zhao. Man, what do you think on this?
I'm very torn on it, and it's hard to kind of base any kind of real strong feelings around it because I'm not familiar with her work. I think that after maybe I see Eternals, maybe I'll check out Nomadland and kind of get a feel for the kind of filmmaker she is. I just don't really know, but I do know that based on the Eternals overall reception, I'm a little concerned, to be quite honest with you, because it wasn't exactly a unanimous home run with Eternal. A lot of fans love Eternals, love it, and that's fantastic. But there's also a lot of fans that don't love it. And the problem here with getting into the Star Wars thing, right, is that Star Wars has already been battered and bruised with divisiveness, and the last thing there's a lot of it. And the last thing we kind of need now is another movie that's going to kind of divide fans, and one that like the fans love and the critics hate, or the critics love and the fans hate.
Right.
It's kind of the last thing Star Wars needs. Marvel can kind of weather that storm because they've kind of had like 20 plus movies of like pretty much unanimous love. Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah.
They can do a movie like Eternals and have that divisiveness and kind of get through it. Star Wars, though, has taken a lot of hits with this. And I don't know, to have another one that's going to be like that, I don't know if it's good. But again, look, I'll be real, though. I'll be completely real. And I'm in the minority here. Mm-hmm. I was not a fan of Thor Ragnarok. I the first 30 minutes into that movie, I was ready to turn it off. It was the jokes. And I'm not a big, like, full disclosure here, I'm not really big on the Marvel humor, and this movie doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on that. It was like joke after joke after joke after joke, and after 30 minutes of it, I really wanted to turn it off, but I stuck with it. I gave the movie a chance, and it did get better as it went on. So when I heard Taika Waititi was going to be directing some Mandalorian episodes, I was like, oh, fuck. Right? Like, here we go. We're going to have these episodes because Mando is kind of a grittier show, and we're going to have Taika's episodes be like these joke fest, right? Yeah. I was really nervous about it. And I got to be real with you. As someone who didn't love Ragnarok, I really enjoyed Taika's Mandalorian episodes. I think he did a really, really good job. Mm-hmm. So even if I go into Eternals and I watch it and I just hate it, okay, it's just like the worst thing ever. I'll still give Chloe a chance because like with Taika, sometimes you get into a different franchise and it just clicks more, and Star Wars might be her thing. She might click with that, and Marvel maybe wasn't. So I don't know, but I am a little nervous though because of this Eternals kind of reception. I am a little nervous, and it does seem like, look, the big hitters are reporting on this. I'm telling you, like Star Wars Newsnet, they're not loosey-goosey with reporting stuff. If they're reporting on it, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's definitely in like there's legitimacy to it, and it wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't. So
well, look, I echo a lot of your sentiments. I mean, honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth or my thoughts out of my head. In that, cool. Yes, it's exactly. He's got the Force, dude. He can read my mind. Look, it's the brand's been through a lot. It's been through a lot, and you had the Atlantic article saying, "Hey, how the Star Wars franchise was mishandled." And that's the tag. You just would have thought that they would have gone in a safer direction, right? In one that could bring stability and balance to the Force. You would have thought that's the kind of direction that they would have gone, and kind of reassured the audience that, hey, this is going to be different now. Not making kind of swing. Look, Eternals makes sense because you're 25 plus films in, right? You kind of have to change up the game and bring some new blood in or fresh talent in to kind of shake things up a little bit because, I mean, let's be fair here. They have an established formula. They have become maybe, sure you say formulaic, and they kind of have to, do something a little bit new. Star Wars, that's the last thing you need. Star Wars, you don't need to shake anything. It's been shaken enough. Okay. You have to really kind of assure the audience that, hey, look, this is a new direction. You can be confident in the decisions that we are making going forward. It just screams to me like a Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige, Iron Man 2.0 kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, John has been doing some amazing work with The Mandalorian. He's well versed and well immersed into this world. He understands this franchise, understands what the fans want and what he himself would want to see, and I think he's got some good bearings. He's definitely showed competency in this field. He's done films with Kevin Feige before. Now I understand that Iron Man 2 didn't maybe go off the way that, and some pressures were applied to Jon Favreau to kind of set up some other things in some other films. That being said, though, it's like it just screams Jon Favreau to me. It just screams like, hey, let's do this again, with another franchise and really get the foundation laid and build on top of that. Chloe Zhao just doesn't feel like that person that can necessarily do that and necessarily deliver, a film that really, there's going to be a lot of expectations placed on it. Let's be fair here. If you say Kevin Feige's involved, that changes the game, especially for hardcore fans of the franchise. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, especially, the last feature film that we got was Rise of Skywalker. I think a lot of people felt a little bit disappointed, right? Oh, yeah. in how that happened, how that worked. And I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this film going, hey, should we even care? You really have to get this one right. And I'm just surprised they went in this direction, to be honest.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, even if look, if you want to have, because a lot of these studios right now, their focus is representation, inclusiveness, right? If you want to go that route, Deborah Chow. Yep. I mean, go Deborah Chow. I mean, Deborah Chow has kind of proven herself, with the Mandalorian stuff that she's done. She understands Star Wars. Her episodes in Mandalorian season 1 were some of the best stuff we got in the entire series, both season 1 or season 2, in my opinion. I think Deborah Chow knocked out of the park. Now she's working right now on Kenobi, right? So she's got her Star Wars chops. She understands the franchise. She's been kind of proven to, go that route then, right? Like Deborah Chow would have been a great pick. And then have, Favreau maybe producer or something and have them work together, whatever. But I just feel man, the first one out the gate for Kevin Feige, he's taken a big risk doing this, and it could, hey, that's the thing with risk, right? It could either pay off big time or you can fail miserably. And that's the thing with risk. We know that with Walt Disney. He's, he did a lot of these where it was hey, first animated feature, it could either be the biggest thing ever or it could be a huge flop. The first theme park, that's going to be clean. Oh my God, right? and it could be a flop, a huge folly, or it could be an incredible, legendary thing. This is kind of that. It's a huge risk, and she could either knock it out of the park or it could really fall flat. So we'll have to kind of wait and see.
Well, it's also an unnecessary risk, to be quite honest. There's really not a call for an experimental film at this stage, right? There's no real kind of reason to risk it in this way. It makes far more sense to go with a safe route, even if you want to go with the inclusive route, or maybe somebody who can bring another flavor to the Star Wars saga in cinematic form. Like you said, Deborah Chow is that person. Right. She's already got her feet wet. She's already immersed into this universe, immersed in this world. Let's go forward with her. It just doesn't make much sense. I mean, look, the Star Wars franchise, I don't think anybody is in a real kind of a position of comfortability with it. At least, Burbank and Wall Street, it's the brand hasn't been maybe leveraged effectively or as much as it could have been. There's so much potential there, but it just hasn't been capitalized on, I think, is kind of the sentiment out there, among this type and even with fans. And it's now you're going with somebody who only has 8 directing credits, for those being shorts. It's it just doesn't make much sense. It just seems, look, and let's be fair here. Look, Chloe Zhao, China maybe doesn't have the best opinion of her. And so that affects that market. And that, look, I understand Star Wars fans. Okay. China's never been a real big market for Star Wars, but you at least want to have, at least be in contention for a film to be accepted there. Right. And this is a controversial pick when it comes to that market. And it's so we're going to be, we're going to have controversy out of the gate. I mean, it just doesn't make, this is just not the move that I would have expected from a Kevin Feige laden product. His first step into the Star Wars universe. So I'm not saying that she can't even be a part of the universe going forward. Right. Hey, get a couple of films under your belt, and then bring in a Chloe Chow to kind of shake things up and move in a direction. Maybe if you want to, I don't think they're going to go this route, but the kind of franchise and kind of side film kind of route, and then one film every year. I don't think they're going to do that. But if you wanted to go that route, maybe in a more stretched out way, maybe give Chloe Zhao, her own film with a completely different timeline and new characters, and try that. It's just for your first outing where you're really going to lay a foundation. I don't really think this makes much sense.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, and we'll see. I mean, Kevin Feige's he's brilliant. He really is. I mean, he's and the guy knows what he's doing. But on face value, though, I'm a little bit concerned. So we'll have to see how it pans out. And maybe after seeing Eternals, maybe our feelings will change.
Maybe,
I don't know, but we'll see.
Maybe her style leans more for Star Wars, right? Maybe it's like, hey, this doesn't make much sense here, but maybe it makes sense for Star Wars. I don't know. But before we get on to our next topic, the other thing that came out as connecting to this, and I think that was a tail end of the article, or at least the paragraph you just read right now, was High Republic, Old Republic, potentially. I know this wasn't on the docket today, but
no, let's talk about it. I actually wanted to address this, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay. What maybe set it up for us? What happened here?
Well, it's rumored. Let me pull this up again.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on one sec.
Yeah.
It says here that he also indicated to us that the 2023 spot will be taken by another movie, likely set in the High Republic. Now, from what I understand, the High Republic, they've already got books, Star Wars novels out right now based in this era. This is kind of a new era for Star Wars. Right. And from what I understand, it's like a few hundred years before the prequels. Yes. That's kind of the timeline here.
Yeah. So I thought it was like 800 years or something like that before the prequels.
Right. 100 years or so, but before the prequels. So that would be just to kind of give our audience a little bit of an idea as to where on that Star Wars timeline it kind of falls. So that's rumored. The 2023 spot will be another movie likely set in the High Republic. So that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, is that going to be her movie?
I mean, I'm not. It maybe doesn't. I think the paragraph alludes to something else. I mean, I suppose it could be. The High Republic's interesting because the High Republic. Look, the fan base for Star Wars is so broad. It's really difficult to know the opinions of all of those different branching fandoms within the fandom, right? So, but the people that I've talked to, the people that I associate with when it comes to Star Wars, aren't exactly that thrilled about High Republic so far. Right. It's just
I haven't heard a lot of good stuff about it either. But I mean,
it's just not something that intrigues them. I'll put it that way. And to set a film there seems odd. I think it would go maybe better if you maybe start out small with the High Republic and maybe a series on Disney Plus. It just seems a little bit. Yeah, it just seems a little bit of a weird decision.
I would agree with you on that, and I'm actually, I've done a few videos on this, and look. In regards to High Republic and even Old Republic, even if they dive into the Old Republic, like Knights of the Old Republic and what have you, I think these eras, because you're kind of introducing them to like the mainstream audiences. A lot of diehard Star Wars fans are familiar with the Old Republic, right?
Very much so.
Very, very much. Very, very much. But the normies, the fan, like the general public that just goes and watches these Star Wars movies and likes them, they're not familiar with that era.
True.
You hit the nail on the head, Dre, when you said this should be a series, High Republic. And I'd even go a step further and say Old Republic should be a Disney Plus series too. Imagine what you can do with this. You give them a Game of Thrones budget. Mm-hmm. You do like an 8 or 9 episode series on Old Republic, or an 8 or 9 episode series on High Republic.
Yes,
you can really that's basically like an 8 or 9 hour movie. Right?
Yeah.
You can really dive into the characters, really get to know the era.
Yeah.
Really deep dive, what you can't do in a 2-hour movie. You can't do that in a 2-hour movie. And you can go Game of Thrones style, right? and really focus on all and really get the character development and really immerse the audience in that era and give them a lot to chew on. That would be so much fun, you know. And I'm watching this show right now on Hulu. It's not like that old of a show. It ended last year in 2020. Okay. It's called Vikings.
Yeah. Okay. And I heard about it.
It's a fantastic show. It's like 6 seasons. I'm almost done with season 5, but it kind of revolves around like these Vikings, and they go on like these raiding parties, and they try to conquer different territories and kingdoms and what have you. It's like this kind of like this geographical like chess board, right? This
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. And I could see like an Old Republic kind of show, or even a High Republic show kind of being in that vein, but with lightsabers. So it's even
look, if you want a marauding horde that goes out and conquers different territories, that was the Mandalorian Wars set in the Old Republic timeline, 4,000 years before, as us Expand Universe savants would call before the Galactic Civil War. Before the original trilogy, 4,000 years before that, in the timeline that is Star Wars, the Mandalorians conquered a lot of the galaxy, and it became this kind of it kind of broke the Jedi a little bit, because you had Jedi who were like, we should do something, and then you had Jedi who were like, we shouldn't do something. You know, there are events leading up to that kind of suggest that their impact in the galaxy is a little bit too great, and that we should really pull back. And Jedi went to war with the Mandalorians, and that's what set up the Revan and Malak storyline that you encounter when loading up Knights of the Republic, the video game, for the first time. Which, by the way, guys, if you have not played that, you have to play this game. I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, or even if you're not a Star Wars fan, it's actually a really good RPG that you know, maybe doesn't hold up in every respect, but hey, look, download it on your phone, play it a little bit. I mean, you will be addicted. I mean, it's a very, very immersive world, even for people who aren't really big Star Wars fans. They do kind of guide you through this kind of thing, and set up this, expand universe or this kind of Old Republic timeline in a great way. But hey, I think I agree with you. Look, maybe with the Old Republic, I'll speak on the Old Republic now. Which huge fan of. I just like, God. now you're sending me back to my childhood, because Expand Universe was my jam, man. And when it came to the Old Republic, that was like one of my favorite eras, because think about it, guys. You know, when Vader comes in the picture, when you see in the prequels and the original trilogy, he removes all the Jedi. But there's really, there's no Sith. The Jedi are kind of, they've gone without the threat of the Sith for 1,000 years leading up to the events of Anakin Skywalker. And so there's really no, they put down, they handle trade routes for the Federation, right? That's what they do. They're kind of like these kind of ambassadors. They're kind of like these, protectors of the peace and stuff like that, but there's really no threat. In the Old Republic, it's not like that. You have, thousands and thousands and, millions of Dark Jedi and Sith against millions of Jedi constantly at odds and at war, tearing the galaxy apart. And it's a really interesting time period because of that. I mean, it's just, there's so many possibilities when it comes to this. The War of Exar Kun, the Rev and the Malak storyline, the Mandalorian Wars, as I alluded to earlier, there's too much to list here. But maybe when it comes to the Old Republic, because there is so much lore attached to it and there's so many directions you could go, maybe setting it up via a Disney Plus series leading up to the film. Right. And then you go back to, the story on Disney Plus, and you lead up to a film. And you build the galaxy up that way, so that you can be more invested in these kind of stories. I mean, it really is. You could go in the Vikings direction, you can go in a Game of Thrones direction. I mean, it really is that big and all-encompassing. There's so many, personalities. There's so many warlords at this time. Like, you could really kind of be invested in these characters on a kind of a streaming or a series level, leading up to the big, film dotted in between. In a very similar way that maybe like X-Files and stuff was done back in the day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the way to go. I'm telling you. I think when it comes to the Old Republic, High Republic, that Disney Plus series is the way to go, because you have to introduce that world to the normies, the general public. And the best way to do that, where you can really give them the most and really get them to understand and really deep dive, is through a series, an 8 or 9 episode series that you just can't, you don't want to cram all that in 2 hours. You know?
Yeah. No, and look, I definitely agree with you on that front. You know, I was like, man, the Old Republic, it lends itself towards the cinema, and I believe it does in some form, but like you said, I think you bring up great points where it's like there's so much to chew on. Maybe it's better to kind of slow roll that out and set that up carefully and strategically through and methodically through a series, and really have that all culminate in films done throughout, and you know, before sending that off to the cinematic. You know, where you have multiple films, maybe a year or you know, even more stretched out more than that. So that's man, there's just so much you can do here. There's just such a big playground. I really hope they get this right. I really do. There's so much potential here. You know, there wasn't that big of a potential for the, you know, even the sequel trilogy or the original trilogy or anything like that to really set up these big, just balls to the walls, as our buddy George would say, big Jedi versus Sith, you know, dark versus light concepts on this huge, massive scale, simply because of the constraints of the universe, as George Lucas, kind of designed at the outset. But with the Old Republic, all bets are off. I'm telling you, it's great.
It's awesome. So yeah, Disney, if you're watching, do a Disney Plus show. Whether High Republic, Old Republic, and really the High Republic era. I know a lot of people don't like those books, and that's fine. But the era itself seems really cool, you know, and it's an era that we haven't dived into, you know, in the Star Wars universe, at least in terms of film or TV or anything like that. So I think that would be a really cool era. Like, they just have to do it right. And from what I understand, the books aren't that great, but that doesn't mean that like a TV show for that wouldn't be great. You know, like if they did a series, they can really go, like George says, balls to the wall and go all out with that. And that would be really cool. So there's an enormous amount of potential, and that really is the future of Star Wars, I think. Are these new these old republic kind of stuff. That's where Star Wars really should go. Get away from the Skywalker stuff.
Please do. Please.
You know?
Really, and honestly, get away from that kind of time period as well. I mean, we know how that story ends. We know where that goes. 4,000 years, you know, all bets are off. You know, anything could happen. Any story could take place. You know, even though Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett bring a really nice kind of unique perspective on some of the, kind of auxiliary stories that are going on at the same time within this period, we kind of know that world. We know the universe. We have films on one end, we have films on the other end. Like we know where it's going, kind of thing. If there's an arc and direction that only it can go. With the Old Republic, man, I'm just telling. It's like, more than anything, Disney, please, or Lucasfilm, I should say, just get this right. Just get this right, please do. And I think that brings us to our next topic of discussion.
Yeah. Yes, it does. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? What is it? You hear it? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it. I got it. But this, maybe I'm jumping the gun here. This is directly related. So go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So Rogue Squadron. Now, this was announced almost a year ago now, believe it or not, at the Disney Plus Investor Day. Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984, was announced last December to be directing Rogue Squadron. So it says here that, and this is again from StarWarsNewsNet.com. It says here, Lucasfilm has officially postponed the start of production on their Star Wars spinoff Rogue Squadron, which was initially planned to make a December 22, 2023 release date. Patty Jenkins remains in the director's chair. I'm going to put a big asterisk at the end of that one. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, yes.
But it says, per The Hollywood Reporter, director Patty Jenkins' existing schedule of projects has been cited as the main reason for the production delay. Okay, it says here, this likely indicates the Jenkins' existing commitments to DC Films and Warner Brothers and the third Wonder Woman movie, which she will be directing, and the Amazon's spinoff, which she will produce, are taking priority over Rogue Squadron. Okay, so I just want to say this, and look, this is the thing with Lucasfilm, okay? We and Dre, you know this all too well, man. Like, we've heard this bedtime story so many times when it comes to Lucasfilm.
Yes,
I'm not. Yes, and I don't buy this reasoning for a minute. Look, so they signed her up to do this movie, right? And then they're gonna sit here and be like, "Oh man, we double booked. Silly us! How rude! Come on." Look, they didn't double book. She had her schedules locked in. Guaranteed there are some sort of creative differences like we've seen in every other Star Wars movie since Disney has bought Lucasfilm. There is drama afoot. But what do you think, Dre? What do you think, buddy, on this?
The amount of churn and burn that Lucasfilm has had with its creatives is really astounding when you really think about it. I mean, in the course of 5 films, they have lost how many directors and content creators?
Let's count them. We had Josh Trank, who was supposed to direct who was supposed to direct a Boba Fett movie. Mm-hmm. He got fired, and that movie was eventually canceled. Mm-hmm. Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct Star Wars Episode 9, which became Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. He got fired and replaced with J.J. Abrams. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think he left because that's a whole other discussion.
Or he left. Mm-hmm. We have Lord Miller, who left the Solo project like more than halfway through, and then Ron Howard had to take over from him. We had Rogue One, where they kept their director, but they needed Tony Gilroy to come in and like drastically fix and alter stuff because the movie was supposedly such a big mess.
Right.
What else? I'm sure I'm missing something.
Well, D&D. So DB Weiss and
correct. The Game of Thrones guys, they had their, I think, a trilogy or something, or a series of movies, and remember with the Game of Thrones guys, it was the same excuse they used for this. It was scheduling. Yeah. Oh, they're so busy with their Netflix stuff. There's just no time to do the Star Wars stuff.
Oh, no time. How convenient is that? Right after the last season of their big hit show is universally panned, right after that, oh, you know what? Scheduling conflicts. We can't. Netflix. The Netflix money. It's like, oh, okay, that's really convenient how that happened.
Right. I mean, and this is kind of the same thing in a way with Patty Jenkins, because Wonder Woman 1984, while I enjoyed it, a lot of people didn't like that movie, and now suddenly she's got scheduling conflicts as well.
Well, wouldn't you say that Josh Trank is a little bit of that too? They grabbed him before Fan 4 Stick actually came out, and then when it came out, you know what? That Boba Fett movie that we were going to do with Josh Trank, we're not going to do that anymore. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it convenient? So this is the go-to excuse.
Yes.
With Lucasfilm, every time there's some sort of second thoughts, buyer's remorse, whatever you want to call it, with a director, they trot this excuse out. And I'll say, and this is why I said early on in this segment about how it says here Patty Jenkins remains in the director's chair, and I said there's a big asterisk at the end of that. I don't think she is. I think the movie's probably going to be canceled, but if the movie's going to go forward, she's not going to be the director. This is a telltale sign. This is what Lucasfilm does every time. The announcement of her replacement will come. I guarantee it.
I'm sorry. It's just bad leadership. You can only churn and burn through talent like this without it having to be, without it having being an issue with the people at the top making these kind of decisions. It's in like we said, in the course of 5 films, you've gone through like 8, huge people within this creative industry that honestly, there's not a lot to go around because everybody's looking for content for their streaming platforms and so forth. And you've churned and burned through a lot of them, and it's just, I haven't seen this kind of churn since I worked at McDonald's. Okay, I think I told you that in DMs. It's like, I mean, how many people are going to be, revolving through this door here? So, I don't know, man. I just, it's just the same old song and dance. The same old, oh, hey, we got somebody that's really big, that's maybe trendy, and people are talking about in some circles about, oh, they have a great career and stuff. We'll grab them for a Star Wars project, and then, oh, whoops, sorry, can't work it out. It's like, it's just, at some point, like we said before in earlier discussions, this franchise needs stability. This franchise needs somebody who's kind of like established, who doesn't have 50 films lined up or whatever, but can also wrangle this kind of thing and really handle it with some care and love with it, which it desperately needs. And don't and just stop, stop going with trends. It reminds me of like a bad football franchise. I don't know how much you follow the NFL, but you just have some clubhouses, or you have some owners who are just, they just get general managers and head coaches all the friggin' time. And it's just, and then you have like your Pittsburgh Steelers, who's going to only have like 3 in the last 60 years or whatever. It's just, there's a certain amount of stability that's attached to those franchises, and you can see that success on the field. Similarly with something like this, it's like, every single one of these Skywalker films that came out, in the sequel trilogy, made less than the movie before it, right? And
True.
You had that big, huge loss with Solo, and it's like, what are you doing? You're chasing a trend. You're going with this Rogue Squadron here, which sounds, kind of interesting, but it's like, now you're going to have creative differences once again. It's just and this is what gives me pause about the Old Republic, because it's like you really need to establish a franchise that we can. Established with fans that we can trust you and handle this properly. And I'm just not seeing it here.
No, I'm not either. And look, I'm gonna preface what I'm gonna say here by saying, like, because I know some people will probably jump on me for this, but I don't dislike Kathleen Kennedy. I think for the most part, the movies that she released were good. I've enjoyed the 5 movies we've had from Star Wars. Okay, I don't hate her, but I also don't think she's the greatest thing ever. I'm kind of whatever about her, right?
Yeah.
But with that said, it's time for new leadership. I think really, Dre, like the only way we can fix this going forward and to build trust with the fan base and to kind of start new and to start to build up, they need new leadership.
Yes.
And I think that's when you can really start to build back up. And I just think that, look, Kennedy is a fantastic producer. Her work, you can't like, people can't downplay what she's accomplished in her life. She's earned the respect, but the problem is that sometimes just because maybe you're a great producer doesn't mean that you're a great studio chief, and there's nothing wrong with that, but she obviously has an issue running the studio. This is not normal. Like, it's so funny too, because people will tell me, like, on social media and stuff, like, oh, well, every studio has lost directors. Yeah, I know. I understand that. Losing a director isn't abnormal necessarily, but when it happens for every movie, that's abnormal. It's like, you can have the guy who drinks a beer every night for dinner, and you can have the binge drinker who drinks 12 beers a day. Yeah, right. Technically they both drink beer, and drinking beer is normal. The issue, though, is that the guy drinking 12 a day is excessive. Yes. So it's the same thing here. It's not weird that a studio would lose a director. It's weird that it's happening with every movie.
Well, and look at how these things have happened. It's not just the act of getting a new director. You're going to go 75% into Solo with Phil Lord and Chris Miller and then pull him? Like, let's be fair here. Like, who does that? When have you ever heard of, Warner Brothers and stuff will do that? Yeah, maybe. But it's like, this is Star Wars. This is, under the Disney brand. You expect a little bit more stability than doling out all this production budget, and hiring these actors for a given set schedule, and then saying, oh, yeah, we're going to pull the plug on this movie and go in a completely different direction. It's like, you should have done that way before we even hit the set. It's like, And then you look at David Benioff and DB Weiss and how they were evangelized by Bob Iger himself during interviews, and well, we're not going to be working with them anymore. You look at Gareth Edwards, right? He directs the whole movie, and then in the edits, it's like, you know what? We're going to give it to somebody else. And we all know how that kind of thing went. It's these like late decisions. It's these kind of this completely. There's no vision, right? There's no kind of there's no kind of roadmap, and this has been admitted to by Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams and others when it comes to this the sequel trilogy, right? There was no vision for where we might end it up, and it was just director given the full reins and make something work out of this. And it's just, look, Kathleen Kennedy is a great producer, but let's be honest here, the biggest part about a producer's role is selecting that director,
right? And
it's just, if you get through 90% of the film and you say it's not working, that's not necessarily on them, that's on you at that point.
When it happens this frequently, it's on the studio head. I mean,
correct.
It's when it happens this frequently, it's a leadership issue. I mean, you can't blame it on even like the director, any of this. I mean, this is definitely a Kathleen Kennedy failure.
It is.
She has dropped the ball on this time and time and time and time again,
Right. And the rumor is, and this leads to our next topic a little bit, but the rumor is that because of these failures, because of this stuff that's happening, where it's like, the studio's in seemingly chaos, with a relatively small film slate, by the way. I mean, we're talking 5 films here. Look at Marvel, and look at just the wide range of directors and talent that they've had over the course of 25 plus films, right? That just huge universe, and it's sprawling out with characters all over the place, and all those scripts have to be consistent with the overarching story and so forth. Look at how well that's been accomplished, and with relatively little drama attached to a lot of those productions, relatively speaking.
Only 2 directors out of all those, I think it was the Doctor Strange one and the Ant-Man one. That's it. Out of 20 plus movies, all interwoven, cinematic universe, 2.
Yes. And look,
that's it.
Every studio has their production problems, and every production has its own issues attached to it. There's no comparison, folks. I mean, when you compare these 2 studios, there's no comparison whatsoever. And you made a great point, because some people have made the argument, well, it's Star Wars, so it's under the scrutiny of the media 24/7. Yes, that's true. But you made a great point before the start of the show, where it's like, hey, look, Marvel's under scrutiny too,
right?
And in a lot of ways, it has superseded, pop culture away from Star Wars in a lot of respects, and has superseded its significance on the pop culture scene. And it's under a huge eye too, and we're just not seeing the same production woes and troubles and media hysteria that we're seeing from Star Wars.
Right. No, exactly. And it's because there's nothing really there, like the reason why there's so much to report on with Star Wars is because there is so much more drama, and yeah, they're both studios are under a microscope, but the Marvel side just doesn't have it. And even when you look at other studios like Pixar, I mean, even when you look at Pixar, the only movies in recent time that had drama was Good Dinosaur, and I think it was Brave that swapped out their directors. And again, they're like Marvel. They've had 20, 30 movies under their belt, and they haven't had the constant revolving door like Lucasfilm. Yep. And this is the one thing, and a lot of people like to evangelize about Bob Iger, myself included. I love Bob Iger. I think he was fantastic as CEO, but one of the big failures of Bob Iger was this Lucasfilm issue. He should have nipped this in the bud earlier. I know he respects Kathleen, and he should. But this shouldn't have been able to drag on as long as it has.
No.
They should have replaced. He has no problem letting people go. I don't know why there was this insistency to sort of keep her on board when there was failure after failure after failure. I mean, she's had success too, no doubt, but there's been a lot of issues. I don't know how she's kept that position as long as she has. I really don't.
Well, I'll say this about Bob Iger and his decision with Lucasfilm. Look, Pixar, they were in active development of films. They had produced films. as a kind of a fledgling studio themselves. They had all of the infrastructure built around them to continue that success going into the future. And we're actively working in developing films as they were purchased, right? So I would say kind of a turnkey operation, right? Just turn the key and go. In this case, it was here. You had money to work with. Here's a bigger bag of money. Return a bigger bag when you're done. That kind of thing, right?
Right.
Marvel, very much the same way. They were actively producing films at that point, actively developing films at that point, had developed films leading up to the acquisition by Disney. And they had actually, in the case of, giving money to these productions, they had actually invested more money into films like Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, and Thor: The Dark World. They actually, famously gave them a little bit more money to work with based on the success of Avengers and investing in those projects for future success. Ike Perlmutter was sidelined actually because he didn't want to spend as much money as Kevin Feige and Disney wanted to spend towards these things. And that was the right move, but very much a turnkey operation. When it came to Lucasfilm, they hadn't produced a film in like 10 years,
Right.
Up to the point that they were acquired, and at the point that Force Awakens came out, they had to reestablish their studio, reestablish, Pinewood, and getting into that kind of development phase and reactivate that studio. And I think Bob Iger's the big mistake that he did with Lucasfilm was treat Lucasfilm like Marvel and Pixar before them, as turnkey operations, which Lucasfilm was clearly not in that position. No. They did not have the producers and production capabilities that these other studios did right out the gate, and they tried to force that and ram that through, and that was the wrong move, objectively speaking.
It completely was.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. They didn't have the apparatus set up like these other studios to do that. They were not, like you say, turnkey operation. It was not a turnkey operation.
Yeah.
They really needed to kind of build Lucasfilm up, and he just didn't. And then Solo came and it flopped, and look, it shocks me that she's kept her position as long as she has. I mean, I think that she's a talented executive or producer, but I just don't feel like, after a certain point, she was taking so many losses, and she's still there, and maybe Chapek will change that. Look, Chapek is still he's got Iger looking over his shoulder, who knows, come January, maybe she won't be, maybe Chapek will say, hey, you know what, Favreau, you're up, who knows?
Yeah.
But I think we do need some fresh blood in there. I think it's been kind of drudging on for way too long, and it's the same old song and dance. It's not improving, and Lucasfilm needs to move on from this era, I think. Well,
and this alludes to my point that I was alluding to earlier, and got sidelined with some other stuff. But the rumor is that she has been sidelined in a little bit. That she has had some responsibilities, maybe passed around. I will say maybe diversified, right? Split up amongst some other people, specifically Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni when it comes to The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and some other projects coming out of that, coming out of that side of the studio. And the rumor is that High Republic, but more specifically Indiana Jones, has been something that she herself has been personally vested in, and has responsibility. What's the word I'm looking for? Her responsibility is now these other projects, and we're getting some word from the production that maybe the same kind of shenanigans with some of the other projects, under her tutelage and leadership, are showing up in the Indiana Jones production. So maybe we can get to that. I'm hearing it again. Maybe we can get to that a little bit and find out what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Indiana Jones 5 was delayed a year.
What?
Now, a year.
Shocking.
Yeah, and a lot of these other movies, look, they're Disney kind of, shuffled the deck a little bit. They did delay some of the. I think Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I think they're calling it Black Panther 2.
Yeah.
Was delayed, and various movies were delayed. Marvel too.
Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Right.
And they do have to, they have to be released on a schedule. So if you push back one, then that affects others, and that's what happened.
Right. Exactly. But here's the thing, though. None of them have had the amount of delay like Indiana Jones did. A few months here and there. Some of them just a few weeks.
Right.
Indiana Jones for a full year. Something's going on with that one. And again, it's this Kathleen Kennedy thing.
Now, for those keeping a track at home, again, this film had already been delayed multiple years leading up to even this delay for another year. So let's not, forget that context.
Right, exactly. So this is a mess. This is another mess. And I've said it in other videos, and I'll continue to say it. Too many coincidences aren't a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the same thing happening under the same executive, it's not a coincidence. There's something going on with the leadership or the approach that's causing these production problems. This is not some outside thing, happening to her. This is something that the leadership is bringing this on. It's not happening with Marvel. It's not happening with Pixar. It's not happening with Disney Animation. It's not happening with any other studio. It's Lucasfilm. Something's going on here. It's crazy.
I'm debating on whether or not, because there have been stories.
Say it.
Okay. All right. You convinced me. There have been stories leaking out of various publications, Daily Mail, some others, detailing maybe some plot,
beats.
Maybe some plot and story beats when it comes to the actual story of Indiana Jones 5. Okay. You guys, people at home can research themselves if they want to know that kind of stuff, because I don't want to spoil anybody. But I'll just say 2 words, and hopefully this won't be a spoiler. If it is, maybe stop listening right now and pick up in maybe 10 seconds. But the big spoiler, 2 words, is time travel. That's the big rumor. Okay. Now already I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, really? Like, this is where we're gonna go with this whole thing? It sounds bad.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're going in the direction of replacing Harrison Ford with somebody else. Okay. Right. Maybe Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I'm not sure. The rumors that I've been hearing are related to the studio got wind of this and really did not like the approach that was being taken by the script and the production and so forth. That now that we're coming out of the pandy, now that Bob Chapek's regime is becoming a little bit more hands-on and is becoming familiar with their roles and so forth, that the oversight was like, ooh, that's the film? That's what we're funding? We got to rethink this a little bit. And the rumor is that in this case, maybe it wasn't so much Kathleen Kennedy related. Well, maybe it was due to the fact of the script and some of the awful story points that have leaked out so far. They don't sound good, by the way. What we were asking for before, maybe a little bit more involvement from Bob Iger, it looks like that's happening with Indiana Jones, with Bob Chapek this time, and is saying, hey, look, this doesn't sound or feel right. We got to push this one back. Yeah.
Well, good. That's good news. I mean, that's what Bob Iger should have done with a lot of the Star Wars stuff. He was a little more hands-off than... And look, Iger's kind of MO is to kind of let the creative do their job. But the problem, too, though, with that is when you're seeing a studio struggle, you have to know that, like, there has to be a point when you do jump in, though, right? Yeah. It's kind of like when you're working in an office. You don't want to micromanage your team, right? Mm-hmm. But if you see an employee that's falling behind, then you have to step in a little bit,
You do.
And Iger didn't do that. He let that employee keep sinking.
He did.
Keep missing your numbers, keep missing your production numbers, keep missing all your and just keep going. I'm going to leave you alone. Right. I don't want to micromanage you, and that's not the right approach with this. With Kevin Feige, you can do that.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Feige runs a tight ship. He handles his business. Pixar.
And he's earned some failures, right? He's earned a little bit of leeway.
Right. With this, right, exactly. With this, it's completely different. So that was one of the big, I think, in my opinion, one of the big black eyes of the Iger administration or era, whatever you want to call it, was Lucasfilm. I think that they really did bungle it in a lot of ways. And this is coming from someone who overall liked the movies. I overall liked the movies they gave us.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt the sequel trilogy could have been better. There's no doubt that a lot of these things could have been better. Yes. And it was because of that failure from the top, I think, and Iger is part of that equation. He's part of that equation.
I would say he is. I would say he definitely has to share some of the blame. And he even said it himself, the buck stops here. Yeah. And maybe we shouldn't have done some of the things that we did. Go ahead.
Oh, real quick, I was just going to say, maybe instead of having Alan Horn retire, we can have Kathleen Kennedy retire and have Alan Horn run Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
I don't know if Alan
would be nice. That would be cool, yeah. Look, I think you need... Kevin Feige is hard to duplicate. What was great about Kevin Feige was he was very producer driven. He definitely, but he could be because he really had a sense of those characters. He really had a sense of the universe, the world that was Marvel. And as a fan himself of that franchise, he knew what he wanted to see was probably consistent with what the audience wants to see. Right. I gotta be honest, folks. Kathleen Kennedy. Look, and here's the big test, right? When it comes to this, that I always tell people. Look at any of her interviews when asked about specific beats when related to the story or, the Old Republic or whatever. She's asked about Luke Skywalker, certain characters, whatever it happens to be, right? Look how she answers those questions. Okay? Now look at Kevin Feige. Ask him a particular question about some specific issue within the story. When it happens to be Captain America, the Infinity Stones, whatever. It's night and day.
Night and day.
I mean, he understands that world, understands that universe, and can give an answer that would, relate to a fan with their wants and expectations and the certain specific story beats that Marvel is so well at presenting. Kathleen Kennedy, she speaks in vague terms, and it's she doesn't get hyper specific, and it's almost like the characters and narrative maybe an afterthought, when juxtaposed against some other things, and it's obvious. It's just I just don't think she has a good. And I think this is where her problems really stem. I don't think she really has a good grasp on neither the story or the fan expectations surrounding that.
Yeah, that's a big problem. It's a big problem because she is definitely more of a suit.
Yes.
Like a Bob Iger. She's kind of akin to a Bob Iger in the sense of she's more of that I feel like she would be better fitted in a non-creative executive role. Maybe as a CEO or something where more business end, but running the studio and kind of being so hands-on with the creative end, I just think she falls flat. And especially like you mentioned, Dre, she's not, look, Feige's a fan. Feige's in the trenches. Favreau, he's a fan. Filoni is a super fan.
Yeah.
They get the material. Kathleen Kennedy, she knows Star Wars. She's not completely oblivious to it. It's not like asking my mom about it or anything, but it's not the same. It's more spreadsheety. It's more, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Well,
it just doesn't feel, she's not a sweaty. She's not a sweaty.
Right. Well, yeah. And look, she worked as a producer for George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who like facilitating their productions and their vision and their their ideas of what they wanted to put on screen, right? She facilitated those productions, and I think she is a very good facilitator of certain productions and getting those movies made. But when it comes to actually having a vision and setting that in motion and seeing that through, I just don't think that's her strong suit, right? Yeah. I just don't think that's where her talents lie necessarily. I think she does have to have somebody like who understands the fans, understands the story, like a Dave Filoni type, to kind of complement her talent, which she does have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sometimes you can be like, to kind of build on your sports analogy that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can be, a great player, like you're a great basketball player. You know how to play football very well, but that doesn't always translate into being a great coach.
Yeah,
and
great point.
And that's kind of what it comes down to. And that's not disrespecting her in any way. It's just that's the reality that sometimes you just.
We would, to speak to the NFL types out there, John Elway. John Elway's a great example of this. Great player, awesome Denver Broncos. He's got the cachet. He's got those Super Bowl victories under his belt. But when you place him in the general manager role, mixed results. Maybe that's not his strong suit. That right. Kind of thing. I think that complements your point quite nicely, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dre, buddy, I do appreciate you coming on today, getting nerdy with me, talking Star Wars, Eternals, Marvel, Lucasfilm. Yeah. It was fun. This is a great conversation.
Fantastic conversation. Just to button up the Indiana Jones talk. I hope it's made. I hope it's made successfully. I hope nothing happens to some of the older people of the crew. I hope John Williams and Harrison Ford are still attached to it at the end of the day, and hopefully it goes well. But we will see. But it was a great discussion here. I'm so glad you had me on. This was one that I was really looking forward to, because there's so many juicy tidbits and info, and so many, different storylines crossing and going over. It's a fascinating time for sure.
Now, real quick before we close it out. Coming back to the Indiana Jones thing. What if Indiana Jones gets into some temple, right?
Yeah.
And he starts to dig through this temple.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes across the Back to the Future DeLorean.
Oh, there you go.
And that's the time travel mechanism. Oh man, that would be pretty crazy.
That's it.
We don't need roads.
Yeah. Oh wait, maybe I had that drop too. Hang on. I might have it. What?
We got to get that if you don't.
I know.
It's a great one.
Oh, maybe I don't have it on here.
Yeah.
Maybe because I remember clipping it out and putting it on here, but I think I may have overrun it with some others. You just gotta, you gotta.
Well, I think we did have it for our Universal show, but that was a while ago.
It was. Oh man, I wish I had that, because it's so good. Okay, I'll definitely have that on for the next time.
We'll do that. Yeah. Hey, you never know. Maybe he'll come across the DeLorean, and that's the that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. But
that would be that would be a very interesting, a crossover. Hey, look, maybe that could work. I will say though, I think is it Bob Dale? The lead writer and kind of head of Back to the Future is like, he won't even entertain a remake. He's just like, dude, these films are perfect.
Good for him.
Don't even touch them. And it's Universal, so
that's true. That's
likelihood on that's probably low. But hey, that might be interesting. It might re-energize both franchises, so to speak. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool.
It'd be kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming aboard today, sir. And if you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Best place to find me on social media is at VashSky on Twitter. That's right down there. And best place to interact with me. I definitely love your comments, your tweets, your DMs. It's awesome. You actually do provide great content for the show a lot of the time. So I love that. Always happy to see that. But to find me on video form on your channel, OrangeNerd55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you all for watching. If you can comment down below, what are your thoughts on the Eternals box office? What are your thoughts on Indiana Jones 5, the Lucasfilm Production Drama with Patty Jenkins, High Republic, Old Republic, just Kevin Feige's Star Wars, Chloe Zhao directing that Star Wars movie, possibly. There's a ton of stuff. Comment below with anything that you want to talk about it. Like Dre said, we'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you very much.